Oh, there we go. We're recording. Let's go. All right. Hey Cameron, what's going on? I'm not on Arch. I'm on Debian, and I'm paying the price. All right. So why don't we? That's not nice, guys. Why don't we start? 5 minutes into the meeting. Why don't we start? Why don't we start? Let me just make sure I got everything. Okay. Yeah. Let's go over Docker. All right. So as always, fellas, we gotta start with the don't get arrested slide. So remember, be good. Don't hack into computers that you don't have access, including trying to get access into unsecure or badly configured Docker containers or whatever. So be mindful of that as always. Be cool. Yeah. So you can hack into your own computer. Yes. So agenda today. So we're going to go over some news. What is Docker and where have we seen it before? Some examples and getting started. We do have only two Docker challenges today, just because if you guys joined late and you didn't know, power went out on campus yesterday, and our infrastructure, our CTF instance, lives on campus. So the power went out and the machine did not turn on automatically for whatever reason. So someone had to manually go over there and press the power button. I know we're super advanced here, but that was pretty funny. So club news and announcements. I'm going to keep going over this until it ends, but NSA Codebreaker Challenge is still going on. Right now, we're in third place, right behind University of North Georgia. We have exactly a month left. It ends December 21st. Right now, it's November 21st. So, you have exactly a month left before the challenge ends. There's a ton of different prizes. You get these cool medallions, as we see in the top right. Those are pretty cool. You get job offers, and our school gets a cool trophy if we're first, which is something we've never done, but we've gotten close to. And because it's mainly on individual based level, the more people we get, the more points we get. So that's the main way of how they're scoring it right now, is everyone pitches in and their progress goes into our school entirely. Another thing is we got Advent of Cyber coming up. So this is like the hacking version of Advent of Code, if you've ever seen that, where essentially it's like a event that goes throughout the entire month of December. It's hosted by THM or Try Hack Me. It's pretty cool. There's $50,000 in prizes, though take that lightly, because you know how they like to say, oh yeah, 50,000, but it's like a ton of $10 gift cards to whatever store they're doing. But there are some legitimate prizes, and you get raffle tickets every day you do a challenge. So it's pretty cool. You also get these certificates that they give you. I've seen some people actually really care about that. I know some workplaces care about it. And if you're interested, we're going to be technically going over it. And if you really want to do that, you can just go to tryhackme.com /r/ Christmas. I'll post this as well in the Discord when it gets a bit closer, but they have some cool events. You can see the timeline. They kind of list of what's happening. The first day looks like some maybe AI pwning, like you get to talk to ChatGPT and try and get a cool token out of it, stuff like that. It goes into a lot of different things. You can go into that if you want. They'll go over like penetration testing, and it's a really cool way of learning like how to basically do some cybersecurity or hacking stuff if you're new to this stuff. And of course, prizes if you want the Steam Deck. I don't know, go get that. But it's mainly vouchers and Try Hack Me subscriptions, which are pretty cool. And you get weird wallpaper. I wouldn't say that they have the best art, but it's pretty cool. There's some notable people who are covering that stuff daily. John Hammond's up there. So he's going to be doing like daily videos or something like that on how to complete the challenges and whatever. But yeah, cool stuff. We're going to be maybe doing it as a club. I don't know. Maybe like once a week we get together and go over the past week's challenges. But it's also, winter break, so I don't know how that's going to go. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, I suggest doing this when it comes. But yeah. So let's continue. Let's get into the main topic of today. So what is Docker? Before someone says something weird, it's just Docker, nothing more. Don't say I hardly know her. So essentially Docker is, application isolation. It's basically virtualization. So Docker is mainly used to run and create applications in their own isolated environment, where they have isolated namespaces, libraries, and system tools. And a big word you're going to hear whenever you talk about Docker is containers. We love containers. That's why their mascot is a bunch of containers. And, it's containerization. And most importantly, it runs in the background and it's pretty simple to use. So here's the situation. We've made a pretty cool application. Let's say, I don't know, you made some cool tool that will scan a network, right? And it works on our machine, TM, popular thing people like to say, but we don't know if it works on other machines, right? Let's say we're working on like a large team and we're doing this stuff on, I don't know, GitHub. The thing you want to maybe check with your code is, does it follow code formatting? Is it free of bugs? Is it good on performance checks? And most importantly, functionality checks, right? Maybe you modified a piece of code and that piece of code works, but now the other half of your code base is no longer functioning, which is not good. Your boss would yell at you. So, how does Docker play into this? Have you guys seen containers or Dockers in the wild from a CS perspective of, containerization and working on these problems? It's pretty common thing. Someone said actions. So basically container sightings, we see them all the time. Different platforms like to call them different things, but mainly you see them in CI/CD pipelines or continuous integration or continuous development pipelines on things like GitHub or GitLab or whatever, where whenever you make a change or you push new code, it's going to run against like some kind of script that will check, did this guy format his code properly before pushing? Does it meet security requirements? Maybe even newer things like, is it following the security guidelines of not posting your API token so people can't log into your Discord account? So there's a lot of fun stuff, and you can see that, many different repositories use actions to check their stuff. As you can see on the right, PowerShell has some CodeQL. We also use CodeQL that just scans it for, I don't know, random CVEs. I forgot what it does exactly, but essentially it does that. And if you look in one of these logs, you can see that, there's a Docker trace there. As you can see right here, it's building our site inside of a Jekyll Docker container, and it's doing some fun stuff. So it's pretty cool. So how does this differ from virtual machines? Well, a person, may not like to use Docker, and they may say, oh yeah, get another computer and just, run it on there automatically somehow. Well, that's pretty bad because we have Docker already, right? We have containerization. So Docker versus virtual machines in this case, it's much more lightweight than a VM, where Docker containers, they share the host operating system, but they emulate their own operating system using files. So each Docker container will have their own file system to make it look like, its own little isolated area. And that helps because maybe you want to test, a ton of different operating systems with different prerequisites, like, on this machine, I had, I don't know, Wireshark or TCP Shark installed and it's listening or whatever. On this system, maybe I have a different tool listening in. And you can get a lot of different perspectives done, generated pretty fast with this. So overall, it's much lighter than using a ton of different VMs, and that takes up its own thing, and it's just a mess. So in this case, we can just spin up a ton of different Docker containers to run our checks individually or not individually, either isolated or not isolated, or different tool chains, things like that. And that's what we see a lot with these GitHub actions. Is someone will have like 20 different actions where one will check your code formatting, another will check your, I don't know, your performance of your code. One will check, I don't know, fuzzing, make sure there's no unsecure code in your stuff. So there's a lot of stuff you can do here. Now, let's go into a bit of the terminology hell that is learning a new tool like Docker. So in Docker, we have three main things. So don't get them confused. The three main words we have, which are Docker files, images, and containers. They're pretty simple. So a Docker file is essentially the recipe of whatever you're trying to do. It's just simple formatted text. It has its own syntax, and we'll go into that a bit later. And it basically tells whatever you're running how to build the image. As you can see here, it's the first step on the diagram on the right. Images are then kind of like the baked pie. It contains basically all the compiled stuff, the dependencies, tools, and files. So that is basically like you compiling your binary after writing it in C. It's pretty cool. And then containers are like the surf slices. It's the live running instance of your image. It's pretty cool. So you have a Docker file, you build it, and then you run it. So it goes Docker file, images, containers. And I think it's a pretty easy process. That sound good to everyone? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I know. All right, so, oh, that's not good. Uh-oh. 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 Okay, let's see if we can get another view up. It's kind of funny. All right, let's take this window over here. Whoop, whoop. We got this. We got this. All right. All right. Look at this. Look at this. So reading Docker files. So it's pretty simple, right? You can immediately notice that, first of all, this is a really simple Docker file, but we have two main parts here. And what are they? Well, first of all, we have this from here, and this is just a keyword of Docker files to specify what base image we're using. So when I say base image, it's similar to kind of how we have our APT repositories where, there's a giant repository online of different tools and programs that we can download using APT or whatever, packet manager we're using. And then over here, we're just saying we want to use the base image name over here and its version. So in this case, we're using Alpine and the latest version. Alpine is just a really, really lightweight Linux distribution. It's similar to Ubuntu, but it's much, much smaller. It has some basic tools and that's it. Don't be expecting to run Causa on it instantly out of the box. And then down here, we get to our second line, and it's pretty simple. CMD, basically saying we want to execute a command inside this container once it's running, and we're specifying we want to run echo howdy slugs. And what does that look like? Well, slides aren't working, but let's see. And by seeing, we're going to first of all install Docker. So if you guys haven't, try and install Docker. Docker is really weird to install for some reason. I think on Kali and Debian, it's just weird. So I believe you're able to just install Docker-CE, but the easiest way is just go to this URL and see how they do it. Their guide is pretty good. So take, I don't know, 2 minutes and then install Docker. I'm gonna get mine up real quick, and to verify that you guys installed it, just run docker tac version. It should be pretty easy. You may need to start importing like keys from the Docker stuff, and that's okay. Don't be scared of that. But yeah, go to that URL and then you guys can run docker tac version to verify that you install it. See, I have it on mine. So take a few minutes. I'll be right back. Feel free to unmute and chat while you guys do this. Don't be alone. And yeah, I'll be back in like 3 minutes. Howdy, fellas. I'm back. How's it going over here? Okay, Docker version. Okay, I don't think it really matters. As long as it's like semi-modern. Um, but that is a bit weird. If I go to these, let me go find the slide. Yeah. So this is the page I was showing you guys. So it is weird. You may need to go through this process over here. So you just easily copy this, and then apt update, and then install like this, and you should be good. Yeah, bad internet. So remember how I was saying that, there's like Alpine and stuff like that? Um, well, you may have a bad time with what we're gonna do in the future. So the reason why you want to use Alpine or like a smaller thing, you don't want to do Ubuntu, is because that could be like multiple gigs. And Docker is pretty smart when you bake or build your images. It will cache the images over and over if you don't touch them multiple times, because each as we'll go in a bit, each step is its like own layer, I would say, or step. So if you keep that the same between builds, it won't rebuild it. It will keep it in cache, which is pretty smart. But if you keep changing your Docker file, it will have to re-download it a few times. Yeah, and I'll show you the trace of that as well when we get into the cool problems. Okay, so I'm gonna hope you guys have it semi ready. Why don't we jump in? Why don't we jump in? So let's talk about some important Docker commands. We love Docker. We love Docker. All right, so some important commands, right? We talked about this three-step process where we have, our Docker file, our Docker image, and the container. The simplest way to put it is you just list those steps in your thing. And an important note is that a lot of these commands require sudo. I forgot why, but I'm assuming because of the permission level of the container. But just add sudo to whatever you're doing. So simplest step is in your current directory, once you have Docker installed, you need your Docker file. And we're going to be going over Docker file. Let me see if I can quickly get one. Just quickly. Oop. Okay. So we're over here, right? Simplest thing is you have your Docker file. So you can do ls, you see Docker file in your current thing. So first step is building this Docker file so it becomes an image. And what you're going to be doing here is you're just doing Docker build tact, whatever you want the tag or name of the image to be. Let's just call this 123. And then we're specifying where that Docker file is. And since it's in the current directory, why don't we just do period to say this is the current directory. So we do this. Oh, permission denied. Let's sudo it. And then you see it just built it. Whoa, pretty cool. And you get these pretty impressive statistics when you run Docker stuff. It's loading some stuff. It's pulling from docker.io, which is, similar to how we're doing apt downloads. It has like a central repo for Docker. It's on Docker Hub or docker.io, and it's getting Alpine latest. It's just checking that hash to make sure it's good. And then we have that ready to go, right? So we're currently at the second stage. We have Docker and Docker image. Now, how can we check that we have that? Well, we could just go sudo Docker image ls. And then over here, we're just listing the current images we have. And over here, 1, 2, 3, whoa, we got Docker going on. So that's our current built image. And you can do the same thing for containers by just replacing image with container. So if you do Docker container ls, you'll see that we have no current containers because nothing's running, similar to Docker ps tac. Well, I'll show you actually stuff. I don't want to see that. Oh, funny. All right. So we have our tag over here, repository, 1, 2, 3, cool stuff. Why don't we run this real quick by doing sudo docker run 1, 2, 3. Boom, we got howdy going because in our Docker file, we have two things. We're just running from the base image of Alpine and we're just echoing howdy. It's pretty cool. It's pretty epic. And we have some added arguments. You can add tac rm to basically close the container once you're out of it. And you can add tac it for a interactive mode. So if it's something like an Ubuntu Docker container, you can actually go into that, and we'll go into that in a bit. Any questions about this? It's pretty interesting. drop them in the chat, say it, unmute. I want to hear some voices. It's so quiet in my room. I'm hearing voices. If not, yeah, I'm okay. If not, let's do some practice. So I built some really, really simple Docker files for you guys on the CTF page. Please, don't try and reconstruct the stuff inside the Docker file. Just follow the process of building it and running it. Also, it will probably take you more time to do that, but if not, then you got this cool challenge over here, and I'll leave this as like a little cheat sheet for you guys, where you can see what's going on. So take some time, I don't know, join a Discord call real quick with like a friend and go through the challenge, see where you can go. It's a pretty fun one. Hopefully you guys can see it and there's no problems with the challenges. Let me make sure. Yeah, they're up there. Okay. So download that and just remember Docker build, tact, whatever name you want to give the image, and point it to the Docker file. So do that. CMD and run, it's a bit different. Usually use run for, I believe, system calls, and then CMD is when you're executing non like kind of operating system stuff. So off the base image, I believe. So one is for running commands. I know we got an expert. Oh no, he left. I would say ask Ferns, but he's not here. He's an expert at Docker. Anyways, take, I don't know, 5 minutes, see if you guys can get this cool container. This is pretty applicable. But yeah, come back in a bit. All right, time's up. I see some more people have solved it. All right, let's go over how we can solve this problem. Let's do this together. So let me get this up for you guys. All right, so here is the challenge we were doing. Container Havoc. So we found a weird Docker file, but I don't have Docker installed, and that looks pretty messy to recover by hand. Can you quickly build and run the container so we can get the flag? And it gives us this Docker file artifact. So let me download this. I'm just gonna copy link and then do a cool wget here. Boom. Just let me rename this Docker file. So let's get a Docker file. And let's take a peek inside the hood, right? Docker file, and we can see Alpine and pretty long Docker file, but you can see here it just echoes out something. So we downloaded the Docker file. Now going off, these things, anyone know what the first step in having a Docker file? What do you do? What do you do? Yeah, you build it. All right, so first thing we do is Docker build T. We can leave it the same. We can leave it as 1, 2, 3 or whatever. But why don't we just say havoc, right? Because that was a challenge name. And we just say look in the current directory. Oh, sudo again. Forgot. Let's do this, and you can see that it ran it, or it built it. Now, it's built, right? We have it on our system. Now, how do we run it, right? Because it had that echo. Well, pretty simple. Just sudo docker run havoc. And boom, we got our flag. More organized than Evergreen. It's that easy. So essentially, because it was so small, we downloaded it, we built it pretty quickly, and then running it is as simple as just saying docker run the name of whatever you built. So that's pretty easy. That's how you would do that challenge. Any questions on that? If not, we can move on. Let me bring this stuff back. That is the wrong tab. Oh, there we go. All right. So pretty cool. Let's bring this back. Yeah, you guys are getting it. You guys are getting it. Awesome. So why don't we move on? So let's move on to, saying why can't you just use Docker as a VM or, just an isolated machine or an operating system? Well, you can, because remember, we talked about how Docker containers are essentially just isolated file systems, but they essentially share the host operating system. So an example is you can have a Docker file that will use Ubuntu as base image. You can have some kind of file be copied into the file system. You can compile it in the container. So it's not compiled on your actual machine, it's compiled in the container. And then you have a built binary. So your technical operating system never compiled that binary. Instead, the Docker container did. And with that, you can access your container interactively, just like you could with, your terminal like this, right? It's pretty cool. So I'm gonna have issues again for some reason. You see, it's gonna be weird. So let me get my backup window going on. Oh, all right. So let's look at kind of VM-like Docker file. So over here, it's pretty simple, right? Just 4 lines. The main 2 ones we're looking at are the difference in the base image we're using and the command we're running. So here we're, instead of using Alpine OS, we're going to be using Ubuntu, the latest version. Now, the difference between these two is Ubuntu is much larger than Alpine. It has more pre-installed programs, things like that, fun stuff. And here we can see some things we've done before, right? Remember when we talked about how to install different programs, use apt, update, upgrade, fun stuff. Even install Cowsay. Pretty cool. Let me get that Docker file. Let me copy this real quick. If you guys want to, you can write this real quick in your local Docker file. Okay, so what does this look like when we run it? Let's do it. So we got a Docker file, exactly like we have here. Why don't we just sudo docker build? Let's name it the same thing. And you can see that, oh, I did it before, so it's cached. So you can see that it's pretty smart. It knows that we did this before and it already has a cache. Now, this obviously does mean that Docker is going to take up a lot of storage if it's caching these things, but I believe caches expire after whatever amount of time, and you can also delete them. But do note, if you're doing this like a ton of times and you have a ton of different images going on, it will take quite a bit of storage. But here you can see that it's doing this in various steps, right? Our first step was from Docker, get the latest Ubuntu version. The second step was to update and upgrade all our current packages. And the third step was to do calsay. Now, that's all the 3 steps I talked before about, right? We do, when we run Docker, or we build the Docker container, it's doing everything in steps. And because of that, it's pretty easy to debug when a build fails. It's pretty cool. Now, what happens when we run this? We have a cmd bin bash. Now, if we do this on a current system, right, I'm running Z shell right now. So I'm going to spawn in a bash version. And as you can see, that spawns in a bash version. So if we do that on a Docker container, right, what is going to happen? Let's see. Havoc. Boom. Oh, we want to run this in interactive mode. Boom, we have a shell. It's pretty cool, right? Now, some things that are special about this is I forgot what the reason was, but it won't export calsay. So if you do calsay like this, it's going to say not found. But calsay usually lives in user, I believe, games. Just boom, we got calsay. So that's the most important thing here. We got an interactive shell. And going back to our cheat sheet over here, we're seeing that this IT is for interactive mode. So it's pretty cool. Now, what happens if you don't have this CMD bin bash? Well, you might have a bit of fun there. And this is where this Docker execute command comes pretty handy. So if you're missing something like a bin bash at the end of your Docker file and it won't spawn a interactive shell, you can just say execute whatever command you want, and you could just say bin bash. So there is a problem on the current CTF site where we have this exact issue. It's called pirate trouble. So, oh, 2 of you already got it. But yeah, so let's go over this real quick. So pirate trouble. Damn these pirates, one of them took my shell out of the Docker file. Can you quickly grab the shell or the flag without adding more to the Docker file? So your challenge here is try and get the shell on this Docker container without adding to the Docker file. So don't add cmd bin bash. That's cheating. Don't do it. Try and get an interactive shell using these cheat codes. And I will say this comes really in handy in like a lot of your day-to-day Docker usage. So we'll give you guys 5 minutes. We're pretty much close to being done. After this, you're pretty much professionals. So take some time, say stuff in chat, unmute yourself, talk to a friend, talk to me. It's getting pretty quiet over here. But yeah, take some time, see how far you can get, and then we'll go over it. Yeah. All right, so let me quickly jump into it. All right, let's do this. Let's do some CTFing. All right, so let's start with our pirate trouble. So you guys want to see a cool trick? You copy this link for your artifact. You do wget to download it. You could just do tac, I believe it's capital O, Docker, Docker file. There we go. So now we have a Docker file here. So let's take a look at the Docker file. So we could just do less, just so we can scroll through it. So we see it's in Ubuntu. It's doing some updating and upgrading. We got our encoded flags, so you guys can't cheat. And then it's doing something funny over here where looks like it's encoding that flag into var hidden secret.txt. So, ooh, arg me matey, that's a nice shell you got there. And we don't have a shell here. So what happens if we do sudo docker build T havoc. And then we do sudo docker. Ooh. So let me do 2Cs. Boom. Sudo docker run havoc. Nothing, right? Because at the bottom of that Docker file, we saw that there's no cmd bin bash, so it's not going to give us. But off our cheat sheet over here, anyone know what we can add to this command so we can have a interactive shell? Yes, correct. We can just add a tac it, so we get interactive. Boom, we're running it, and we're inside our quote unquote operating system. As you can see, ls. So yeah, essentially you've gone into a container, and it's pretty cool. So remember where we hid it. Let's go over there, cd var hidden ls. Boom, secret.txt. Let's cat it. Oh man, we got our flag. See, just like that, we got a container that we built, we ran, and then we did an interactive shell on. So now you guys should be pros, and you should be able to use Docker. Any questions on that? That's pretty much it. Are there any questions on what just happened? I don't know, maybe you missed a slide, maybe you missed a command and you're not sure what's going on. Any questions at all?
What was the step after downloading, but before running as interactive?
It was just building it. So we're doing sudo docker build, whatever name you want, and then you're saying that the Docker file is over here.
Oh, okay. I think I forgot
So
the dot at the end. I think
yeah,
I was
so always
okay.
when you have a Docker file, your first step is converting that to a image. So Docker file build, whatever name you want to give it, point it to the Docker file. You just use period, say in your current directory, and then after that you could do run. And because you want to get an interactive shell, because we're not just having it run, do its process. We're running tac it or interactive mode, so we can use a shell inside of there. And if you want to quit, just like any other shell, you just do exit and boom, you're out of there. It's that easy.
Okay, looks good.
So yeah,
Thanks.
hopefully this was kind of a good cover on the basics of Docker. Pretty much this is the most you would be doing with a Docker container other than building out your Docker container. So some kind of cycle finishes. Usually you would use this to run like a linter that would, give you an error. And then in your Docker file, you could just say, oh, this tool spit out an error. If you have a GitHub action, just say whatever failed action or whatever, if it gives an output. So essentially, you guys are now pros, and you should be able to do CTFs that involve Docker containers that are spinning them up, or things like Codebreaker. This is pretty much the knowledge you would maybe need in some of those Docker things. This is similar to last year where you just had to, spin up a simple Docker container, and now you guys know how to use Docker. So you guys should be successful in your fruits there. Oh my God. If no more questions, it's been an hour somehow. That did not feel like an hour, but hopefully you guys were able to do that successfully. If not, you could always reach out, ask someone on the Discord, ask me on the Discord how to use Docker. It's pretty simple. Just remember, build and run. That's really the only two things. And remember the three components: Docker file, image, and container. It's pretty cool. No other questions? We are done. Thanks for coming and hack the world. No meeting Friday since it is holidays. But yeah. Have a good Thanksgiving, everyone. Eat some turkey. I've seen a few on the campus. Let me know if you catch one.